words, the theory is that God created the universe so that it looks old. For instance, if he created a tree like this on day whatever, if he created a tree and the tree was this big around, wouldn't that tree have had rings? Have you heard that? You should hear that at least once so you know what some people are thinking. And that's a valid question. The appearance, if he created trees, then he created the appearance of age. And so if he created the world, in a day, and it has striated rock that looked like it's millions of years old, then he just made it that way. So I have a really big problem with that. And it makes God the biggest liar, trickster, fooler, kidder, whatever word you want to use. Oh, just kidding, is what God's going to have to say if he created it instantaneously. And again, I love all the flood, canopy theory stuff. If you don't know that, you should know what some Christians think. I really like it. I don't think it's correct, but it should be considered. And again, I don't know the answer to all this. Okay, I just know some answers I'm not comfortable with anymore. And the appearance of age, to all appearances, and again, scientists always think they know more than they actually do, but to all appearances, the universe is 13.7 or 13.8 billion years old. Okay? Because that's how old the oldest light that's coming to us from the farthest star that we can see. If there's any stars farther away than that, the light hasn't got here yet, and so forth. And that's not just dumb theory. And here's another thing that I always kind of assumed that any scientists that didn't believe in God were just sort of mad at God, and were coming up with all these theories because they were mad at God and they had to come up with a way to explain him out of existence. And that's really not true, and that's really not fair. It's judgmental of us. Some of them are. The fundamentalists are mad at God and are trying to drum him out of existence. But many, 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 many are not. They're simply doing their research with their God-given, gifting the best they can. So we have a real challenge. And again, the church has always thought, no, we're interpreting Scripture rightly. The culture I grew up with said, no, Genesis, 1 and 2 tells us how God created, and here's how he did it. I now look back at that and say, modern man at work. Modern man, we're not in modern anymore, so that's not a synonym for old-fashioned Western civilization, Enlightenment poisoned, rationalistic man reading Genesis 1 and 2 and trying to force it into a grid that it doesn't try to force itself into. Now, having said that, let me say this again. I think there is wisdom and revelation and understanding beyond our wildest dreams in Genesis 1 and 2. So I am not in any way diminishing. I am just now saying maybe we're not reading it, haven't been reading it the right way. The whole debate, I don't know if you know, whole denominations have split and churches have split over, did God create the universe in 6 literal 24-hour days? And again, I'm not mocking that. That's worth considering. It's worth asking. It's worth studying, because that does seem to be what the text says. Morning and evening, or evening and morning, the second day, and so on and so forth. As one of my Christian scientists, he's a real scientist, like Victor and some of you guys. He's a real scientist. He said, did God create the universe in 6 24-hour days, or did he create it in eons and billions of years? And he says the answer is yes. And enter the whole world of quantum mechanics and quantum. What is 24 hours when nothing exists, so to speak? What is 24 hours when there is no mass? And some of you don't know what I'm talking about. Go home and Google it. The time becomes a very, very, very relative thing if there's not a whole bunch of other stuff to hang it on, if you will. I want to say 2 things before the class gets over. One is theism. In the modern world, there were 3 positions one could hold, or maybe 4, about God. 4 if you count agnosticism, which means I don't know, so I don't know if that's a position. But there were basically, in the modern world, there were 3 positions. Atheism, and you didn't think, you didn't believe there was a God. Deism, which is there is a God, but he kind of built the thing, wound it up, and walked away. okay, which is probably, at least from what I've heard, the theology of Thomas Jefferson and maybe George Washington. I don't know. And then theism. Theism, and let me act out how theism was usually described. Deism is God created the universe and then went away and said, there, I've built into the cosmos all the rules, cause effect that it needs to. It's going to get there by itself. And some deists are grumpy and some of them are happy. That doesn't matter. There's both deism. Theism, on the other hand, said God created, I guess this is the world, even though it's the universe, but God created the world and he relates to it. He visits, he does miracles. Now, if you will look at me right now, I am acting out the definition of theism. And what is it? Here's the world, and where's God? Now, he visits a lot. He shows up, he does miracles, he answers prayer, he comes, he draws near to the humble in heart. But that's the fallacy in theism. God is here, and the cosmos is here. Okay? And I think that's a fatal flaw of theism. God, the universe grew out of God. It's not too far off the mark to say the universe is made out of God. Now, and I know you sound New Age. If New Age has some true revelation, receive it. If it's not true, don't receive it. And I can't explain this all completely, but there's something very real in saying the universe is made out of God. Now, what I've done is I'm rejecting this. God is here, the universe is here. No, the universe is made out of the divine, if you will. And I think we see that in Scripture a lot. Jesus says, not one sparrow falls without the Father knowing. Every hair of your head is numbered. We've talked about this before. I hate to repeat myself. But what Jesus is not saying is there's a guy up in heaven that's thinking about hairs. Or, do you see what I mean? It's not, he's like, not count, and I know I'm being a little bit facetious, but not really. He's not saying God is thinking about sparrows and hares. What he's saying is sparrows and hares are within the mind of God. Do you see? There's a big difference there. He's not out here thinking about hares. All the hairs that exist are inside the mind of God, inside God himself. And if that's true, then I'll just go this far, and maybe we'll deal with this next week. If that's true, then all of a sudden the concept of things getting better in the cosmos doesn't sound like heresy. If the cosmos is made out of God, then the concept that maybe things could improve. The best little funny, cute picture is Chronicles of Narnia in the magician's nephew when the witch throws the piece of the lamppost that she got in London. She throws it at the lion, it lands in the ground, and the piece of iron grows into some, you don't know about this, right? Read the book. Oh, if you haven't read Chronicles of Narnia, you're missing some of the best theology in the 20th century. And the lamppost grows into the piece of iron grows into a lamppost. It is possible that in the early cosmos, and we see reflections of this, the best scriptural example, it possibly, indication, not example, hint of this is the genealogy after the flood. Adam lived 900 years, so-and-so lived 800, so-and-so lived 700, 6, 4, 3, 2, 100 by the time Moses